Hi, I'm Sophie, and welcome to my world. Today, I have a very exciting, although advanced, duct tape craft for you. It is a duct tape backpack. And from Sophie's World, I've brought our little mascot, Umi, and she is wearing her own mini backpack. Now, the great thing about these backpacks is you can make them any size. You can make them full-sized, you can make them mid-sized, or you can even make them teeny tiny sized for your little Barbie dolls. What I'm going to teach you is the basic technique on how to make your basic backpack, and then you can go to town with whatever size you want to make it, and the more you practice it, the better you'll get. So there's a very, very basic technique that you need to learn, and that is figuring out your sizing. Now, the sizing is really important, and let me just pull Umi over here so I can give you an idea of what I'm talking about. You've got three different measurements. You've got your height, you've got your width, and then you've got your depth. Your depth is how deep your backpack is going to be. So height, width, depth. Those three sizes are very, very important because we're going to use a little formula to figure out how large to make our fabric. I like to build my duct tape backpacks on an actual piece of fabric, either felt or fleece, some sort of malleable fabric, because you need something to give it strength. The duct tape is just not enough by itself. So here is our formula. You're going to want your height, your width, your depth. You need to know those numbers. To make your fabric, you're going to want twice the height plus twice the depth plus 1 or 2, depending on how big you want your flap to be, extra inches. Okay, so here's how you figure this out. So I'm going to make a backpack that's going to be 6 inches high by 4 inches wide by 3 inches deep, which means that my fabric is going to be 6 times 2, which is 12, plus 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 1. So I've got 12 plus 6 plus 1, which equals 19. So I'm going to have 19 inches in length. Now, to figure out the width that I'm going to need to make it, I'm going to take my width, which is how wide I want my backpack to be. So in this case, I want to make a 4-inch wide backpack, and then I'm going to add the depth, which is 3 inches. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So now I've got a piece of fabric that I need, which is going to be 19 by 7. Okay, math done. Whew, thank goodness. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this entire piece of felt with duct tape. Now I'm just going to start by ripping off a piece that's a little wider than my width. And I want this to overlap on this end and on the sides. So I want it to overlap on the ends and on the sides. See that? See how it overlaps on either side and on the end. Then I'm going to cover the entire thing, just like that. And what I'm going to do for my second strip is, as I cover, I'm going to make sure that I overlap my second piece at least 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So as you can see, as I start putting this fabric down here, you're going to see that there's an overlap here. I've got extra on either side and extra on the end. Okay, I'm going to actually move us ahead very quickly here with a piece that I've already got prepared. Here's a done piece. As you can see, it hangs over on the sides, hangs over on the ends. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to take a piece of duct tape and run it all the way along the edge here. And I'm just going to secure that down, flip it over, and I'm going to fold all this extra duct tape over to the edge of the felt. So all of this gets folded over to the edge of that felt and secured. Just like that. I'm going to show you what I've got done ahead of the step here. When you're all done doing that on all of the sides, you should end up with your piece looking like this. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make slits for my straps. Now to do this, I'm going to make some measurements, and I'm going to need a ruler for this. I'm going to take my ruler, and I need a pen. going to make a mark. Now, what I'm marking here is 6 inches. Then I'm going to mark that depth, which is 3, so 6 plus 3 is 9. I want to mark the midpoint between those two, and that is going to be 7.5. Then I'm going to measure up 6 more inches. I'm just going to leave this flap here. Okay, this is how I'm going to mark for my straps. Remember, we've got the depth to think about. So what you want to do is measure in half of your depth. So remember, my depth was 3 inches, so I'm going to measure in 1.5 inches on either side. It's going to take me over here to 1.5, and on this side it's going to take me to 5.5. Then from there, I'm going to measure in 1 more ½ inch, and this is going to be the edge of where I'm going to make my first cut. Okay, I'm going to measure up 1 inch from that depth fold. So we had 6 inches, remember, and then we had the depth, which was 3 inches. So at 9 inches, I'm going to measure up 1 inch, which is 10 inches, and I'm going to make a little mark. And once again, I'm going to do that on this side, measure up, make a mark. This is where I'm going to cut a little slit. Now, I want to give myself about 4 inches. So what I'm going to do is measure up 4 inches at that same mark. This is where I'm going to make my slits for my straps. And it's easiest to do this now as opposed to when the whole backpack is put together, because once the backpack is put together, it's going to be hard to get inside there. So what I'm going to do is fold this over, and taking my scissors, give a little snip. And it doesn't need to be a very big snip, about ½ inch, which is going to give me a 1 inch hole. And a snip, and again, snip. Okay. Now, remember I told you to divide this halfway of your depth? The reason I asked you to do that is because we're going to fold this in half now at that depth mark, that halfway depth mark, and now I'm going to seal this side with duct tape. I'm going to lay my duct tape right at this very edge here. It doesn't matter if there's extra on the other side. I'm going halfway, as I always do whenever I seal anything. Flip it over and fold it again halfway. So this is going to seal this edge right there. See that? Now, don't get worried if you've got extra here. You can just snip this off. What you're going to do now is once you've sealed this side, you're going to turn it inside out. So that now your pouch looks like this. You can see that there's a line of duct tape, and that's sticky there. That's okay, because now we're going to reinforce our backpack. Now I'm going to use a different color of tape so that you can see how I'm doing this, because this is going to be a little bit different from what we've always done. We're not going to do the up and down. We're actually going to do small 2-inch pieces. And we're going to lay them right on top of that seam and kind of rub it in there like that. Just rub it in. You're going to want to go all the way down on this side and all the way down on that side. Once you're done that, the other thing you can do is you're going to take these ends and fold them in. You can either make them meet in the middle, sort of like a little house, or if you want a little bit more space in between, you can give them a little bit more space like that. This is going to become your flap, just like I've done here. So you can see that I've taped the top so that it's nice and solid, and then I've taped the sides so they're nice and solid. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm actually going to make a little triangle fold. So I'm going to take my fingers, I'm just going to push them here and fold this up. See how I've made a little triangle fold there? It's kind of like when you're making a bed and you fold those sheets in. So I'm going to take some green duct tape here. And I'm going to seal this. So I'm going to push that up like that, and I'm just going to seal it. Now you do want to make sure that you don't close off your little cut there that you made. But see how I've sealed that shut? Now what I want to do is come back with another layer of duct tape here and another layer of duct tape here, just to make sure that this is nice, strong, and secure. So now, as you can see, I've got a pouch. It's got its side. It's got its other side. Now we're ready to add the straps. To make the straps, you're going to need to know how big and long our body is. So usually I just make these really, really long. I usually make them at least 4 to 5 feet long because you can always trim. And the way you're going to do this, I'm going to make a small version. You take your duct tape, you lay it on the ground, or your work surface, excuse me, I should say, and you just fold it in half, like that. Just like that. Now, I want to make this nice and strong. So what I'm going to do is come back with the second piece, and I'm going to do it from the other side. Fold it over. And there you go. Now you've got a doubly strength strap. And this is really going to be pretty darn strong. Now, the big thing about this is when you're making something that is 4 or 5 feet long, you really want to get a second set of hands to help you do this, because this is really the point when the tape can roll over on itself and stick. But with practice, you'll get better. Like I told you, this is advanced. Okay, I've already got a couple made right here. To make these adjustable, what I'm going to be using are my handy dandy key rings. And I love using these with duct tape projects. They're amazing because you can just adjust anything once you've got them on here. And what I've done is just slip the key rings over the end, 2 of them over the end of my duct tape strap, folded it up, and secured with a lot of tape so that it's nice and sturdy. Now all I'm going to do is insert these into my slits. Remember I had those nice slits made for me? So I'm going to take my strap with the end that doesn't have the key rings on it, slip it through, grab it from the back, slip it back up and through. Now I'm going to take the other one, slip it through, pull it up and back, and slip it through. Now, the next thing I'm going to teach you is how to secure it. And what I'm going to use for that is a little button. Now, just to teach you how this works, you thread your strap through the 2 holes and bring it back through 1. And that gives you your strap. Through 2 and back through 1. And there you go. Now, I like to use buttons and elastic so that I get a nice, secure closure. So to do that, what I'm going to do is take a big button here and some elastic. And I really only need about 6 inches of elastic. And what I'm going to do is take my elastic, make it into a little loop, and tie it so that I got a little loop like that. And then I'm going to feed these 2 ends through my button and secure them on the other side by just tying these 2 pieces of elastic, these 2 ends, together. Now, I'm actually going to be using 2 buttons here. And this is kind of like that washer system when you've got a bolt and you don't want it to pull through a piece of wood or a piece of foam core or whatever, or a piece of drywall. You want to make sure that it's going to stay nice and secure and not poke through. And we're going to do the same thing with our duct tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tiny little hole using my scissors. And I always find that the best way to do this is just fold your fabric in half and give a very, very tiny little slit. Just a very, very tiny snip there. I don't know if you can even see that. I'm going to make a tiny, tiny little snip. And then I'm going to feed my end through just a tiny little slip. If you need to make it a little bigger or get through that fabric, you can always push through with your scissors. Now please be very careful that you don't get your fingers on the other side. Okay, now I'm going to slip this through that nice little hole. And if you need to, you can always use your scissors to help push that through. And now what I'm going to do is take another button on the other side. So this is where I was talking about like those double washers on either side. This is going to help to make sure that none of the string pulls through. And if you can see here, I feed it through one button hole and then the other buttonhole. And I'm just going to tie her off. And I'm going to tie this off a couple times. You know, and this is just a standard knot. I'm just going to tie this off 3-4 times. And then I'm going to snip off the extra. Now, the last thing I need is a little button to secure it to. So all I'm going to do is measure down, figure out where that button should be. It should be right about there. So I'm going to put my finger there. Once again, I'm going to take those scissors. I'm going to fold it in half. Give it a tiny little snip. And now, this time I'm going to take a pipe cleaner. And what I like to do with this pipe cleaner is just cut it about 4 inches long. And I'm going to feed it through a nice button. Now you want to choose a button that you like, because this is the button that you can be wrapping around, and this is the button that everybody's going to see. So make sure you choose a button that you like. Use the ugly buttons inside, the nice buttons outside. So now I'm going to take this button. I'm going to take these pipe cleaners, and I'm just going to feed them through. And now on the other side, I'm going to take one more button. I'm going to slip that button on to both of those holes. I'm going to secure, I don't know if you can see that there, I'm going to secure by twisting, 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 twisting. And just to make sure that this is nice and secure, I'm actually going to cut this little extra bit off. Don't need that. I'm going to use a piece of duct tape. Because what else is duct tape good for? Securing things. Okay, so let me see if I can get a good shot there. What I'm going to do is just put a nice solid piece of duct tape in there, smoosh it down real good, and then poof out my backpack, pull this down, take my little elastic, attach it around my button, and there you have it, a little miniature backpack, all ready to be worn for a lovely day out. Now, I will give you a little teeny bit of advice. You don't want to stuff this full of books because it really doesn't have the strength of a regular backpack. But this is the perfect thing to take on a picnic or have a little lunch in or take your bathing suit in. It's a great little backpack to take wherever you want to go for just a day's outing. For more fashionable things that you can make out of duct tape, come and check us out at Sophie-World.com.